in me. Bless his holy name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures to all generations. Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. My message tonight is titled Unintended Consequences. Reading from the second book of the Old Testament, Exodus, chapter 1, commencing with verse 8 and concluding with verse 12. Now, a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, or else they will multiply. And in the event of war, they will also join themselves to those who hate us and fight against us and depart from the land." So they appointed taskmasters over them to afflict them with hard labor. And they built for Pharaoh storage cities, Pithom and Raamses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread out, so that they were in dread of the sons of Israel. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No, the help I know, if thou withdraw thyself from me, where shall I go? Jesus, Jesus, how I trust you, how I prove you and Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, for grace to trust you more, for grace to trust you more. I shall long remember a conversation that I had with a distinguished scholar who had obtained the terminal degree in biblical studies, saying to me that during his seminary education, that the greatest Old Testament teacher that he ever had was an atheist. He did not believe any part of the Old Testament record, but he found it so fascinating that he committed himself to teaching it to graduate students, and according to my friend, how effective he was in it. This does not surprise me because this story, the Bible story, has been called the greatest story ever told. And for those who didn't deny or doubt its veracity, its historicity, its reliability, be that as it may. But I am curious, is there any mind of literary ability who could have formed and forged a story like the one we have in the Bible? Now here we are, early in biblical history, coming out of the book of beginnings, the book of Genesis, coming into the book that describes the liberation of an oppressed people, God's redemption, and then revealing himself to them as he was creating a theocracy, a government where God is king and God is in charge, a Bedouin people, a nomadic people, a nation that literally began with an old woman and an old man named Abraham and Sarah, and their children, their child Isaac, and then their grandchild Jacob. That's the beginning of a small nomadic group of people in a third-rate postage stamp nation off the beaten path of history, and their story has inserted itself into the literature, into the religious life of the world. Judaism, Christianity come up out of this story, of which beginnings I share tonight. Now, Joseph, the great-grandson of Abraham, Joseph has been sent by the animosity and jealousy of his brethren and the hand of God into Egypt, which was an unintended consequence. How often do you and I engage in something that we know or expect or understand what the circumstances will be, but how often does something happen and we do something? We have no idea how it will turn out. His jealous brethren made sure that he got to Egypt. But the unintended consequence is that their action of jealousy and hatred and animosity was used by God to literally save their life in a coming famine. But it was also used to bring this small band of people into Egypt that God might form and forge a nation in the womb of a North African country. All of this, the plan of God. When we come to this part of our story, Joseph has been dead for approximately 100 years. Now, very often, our struggle for liberation, equality, and end to segregation and discrimination in this country as Africans has been paralleled, has been compared, juxtaposed with the struggle of the Egyptians and the Israelis in the long ago. As a matter of fact, oppressed people around the world have been known to pick up the motif of Moses going to Pharaoh saying, "Let my people go." The yearning for freedom, the yearning for liberation finds its seed, traces its lair to the ancient story of the Egyptians oppressing the young nation of Israel. Now, there is a point here that must be brought to our attention, and it is this. There was a time when Israel in Egypt knew great honor and respect. Joseph was at one time the second in command. He's been called the prime minister of Egypt, second only to the authority of Pharaoh himself. The people were honored, respected, appreciated. That has never been the case of blacks in America. Our place in this country to this day is given to struggle and difference and anxiety and racial angst. I remember I was alive when the Civil Rights Act was signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, 1964. The Voting Rights Act signed in 1965. The Open Housing Act signed in 1968. We're talking about events that predate 50 years ago. And what are we facing today? The surge of racism, of discrimination, of subtle or not so subtle forms of oppression, gerrymandering, taking away voting rights. It's incredulous that this fight would continue. So there was a time when Israel was greatly appreciated and celebrated. In Egypt, not so with our struggle today. Oh, we've made wonderful gains, but the fight for equality continues, and God knows how long it will continue in the life of this republic. So it's about 100 years later. Then there's a key word in the text. There came a Pharaoh to power who did not know Joseph. Now, that can mean two things. First, either he did not know anything about his history, or he did not know his character and contribution to the nation. Either one is possible. You know, I have always said that those who do not know the lessons of history are bound to repeat its failures. There are those in our world today who seem to know the lessons of history and are determined to follow that same path. Why would some of the things happening in our world be happening? Of all the times that war has raged on the continent of Europe, why is it happening today? We're determined to go over the same ground as if we can get a different result. So whatever caused this Pharaoh not to know Joseph's history or respect his person, he does something very interesting. He takes an assessment of the large number of these people in his land. The population is growing. Let me tell you something that's giving America problems, if I can be blunt tonight. The last few years, the number of children in our kindergarten are primarily minority children. Did you hear that? So that by 2045, America will be a majority minority country. And if you don't think that some of the politics that we see today is a not so subtle effort to deal with the fact that those who've enjoyed majority status and hegemony are moving to the minority, and that's frightening. That's the real cause. That's the underlying subterranean effect of much that we see. Oh, we keep looking at the outside. Look a little deeper. Get away from the headlines. Get away from the ridiculous politics of today and see what's really going on. America, the United States of America, with a European hegemony for over 200 years to become a minority nation? Selah. That was the situation facing Pharaoh, so nothing is really new. Trust me, empire is empire. So Pharaoh says, I know what we'll do. We will think strategically. He convened his cabinet. He styled filed a political campaign, if I can contemporize the text. How do we deal with this issue? How do we keep Egypt great, or make Egypt great again? What do? We have to deal wisely with this burgeoning population. So by this time, there were 600,000 men, not counting women and children, which makes the population maybe 2 million. Now, he had a twofold approach. See if this sounds familiar. Let's put upon them excessive labor. Let's make it hard. Let's work them real hard. Let's oppress them with burdensome labor. And the second thing is, let's exterminate the boys. Let's cut off the future of the race by killing the children. Oh, I wish you could see the Bible so that we don't have to make the Bible relevant. Just read it. Hear what I'm saying. Let's oppress the people in work. And then let's make sure that they kill the babies. Kill the babies, did you say? Is anybody listening to me? Let's kill the babies. Let's kill them in the womb. And when they come out of the womb, let's kill them in the classrooms. America is killing its babies in the womb and in the classroom, in the streets. So that on one hand they kill medically, and the other hand they kill by weapons of war. Kill the future, because that stops the future progress. Oh, you tell me the Bible is not relevant? It's because we have not read it. This happened thousands of years ago. This was the approach of the government. We make people work for unfair wages. Does that sound familiar? We don't give people time to have medical leave. Does that sound familiar? We pay men more money than women for doing the same work. Does that sound familiar? While we enjoy the richest and the largest of our society, we expect some people to get by on less and then blame them for not pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps when we took their boots. We call giving everybody health care socialism, so that our capitalism is built on fewer people having less, so more people having less so the fewer can have more. Now if I'm saying it wrong, correct me. Is that not the basis of our economic system? So that we pass massive tax cuts so the rich can get real richer, and the rest of us are blamed for wanting to live on the country, for wanting handouts while we give handouts to the richest. This book addresses the real issues of our time. Thank God for the Bible. And so something happened that wasn't supposed to happen. They tried oppression, and cruel and cold-hearted it was, but in the oppression, something strange happened. Pharaoh couldn't figure it out. The latest census data said that in spite of the oppressive actions of his government, these Israelites kept growing and multiplying. That was an unintended consequence. Let me come back to that as I draw to the close. There's something else too, that if you finish reading this, as the burdens became heavier, the people began to cry out to the Lord. See that? You know, all before then, there was no need to cry out to the Lord. There was no need for them to pray. They were doing well in Egypt. Things were in their favor. But when the burdens became heavy, they began to cry out to God. I have a beef with most of us, because in tragedy, I've heard people say, where is God? A hurricane, a tornado, a terrorist act, an act of violence. And people cry out in a plaintive way, "Where is God?" Basically, they're arguing if there was a God, he would not allow this to happen. But I've noticed watching television and watching events, nobody ever comes out of a Super Bowl game saying, "Where is God?" No one in my city goes to a Mardi Gras parade and says, "Where is God?" Nobody goes to a birthday party or celebration. We only ask, "Where is God?" when trouble comes, so that most people don't think too much about God or themselves or their destiny until trouble comes. It's as if God only gets on the agenda when trouble strikes. When life is going well, nobody mentions God. When the bottom falls out and the clouds go dark and the waters rise, we want God to intervene while we ignore him. The rest of the time, these people began to cry out to God, and God told Moses, "The cry of my people has come up before me." They prayed, and I'm watching us in America become so rich and so powerful and so strong and so independent that we've become of age with no reason or no room for God. But I'm telling you, God knows how to put us on our knees. God knows how to bring us back to prayer meeting. God knows how to get our attention. God knows how to remind us that we're nothing of ourselves. They prayed to God, and God heard them. And I'm telling you, I'm grateful. He is a prayer hearing God. "Oh, thou that hearest prayer, unto thee shall all flesh come." I love the Lord. He heard my cry, pitied every groan. Long as I live and troubles rise, I'll hasten to his throne. I love the Lord. He bowed his head and chased my griefs away. If you pray, and as our forebears used to say, pray right, he will hear. We serve a God who will answer prayer. The only reason that God is not moving is because we've not asked him. We've decided we can do it on our own. We enjoy our own sense of independence, but no man is independent from God. Elton Trueblood said, cut flowers cannot last. I've given my wife beautiful flowers across the years, but she's kept none of them because they were cut from the root and they cannot last. We cannot live without God. We cannot make it without God. All my help comes from the Lord. In him we live and move and have our being. He is the source of life. I take that back. He's life itself. Now, they multiplied. Against the backdrop of oppression, they multiplied. Just couldn't kill them. And he told the midwives, if an Israelite girl has a girl, let him live. But if she gives birth to a boy, throw him in the Nile. But he noticed this wasn't happening. So he called in the chief midwives and said, what's the problem? They made up a story and said, you don't understand, these Israelite women give birth so quickly. By the time we get there, the baby's already born. Well, the beauty of it is you just can't stop God's purpose. You can march against God. You cannot stop it. You can set yourself against God. It will not work. God's will and purpose will stand. And so they just kept multiplying. To the consternation of Pharaoh and the Egyptians, they kept multiplying. I am the heir of a people that just kept on multiplying. Brought to this nation from the shores of West Africa, robbed of our names, robbed of our history, robbed of our dignity, sold like chattel slaves, oppressed for 249 years, treated as if we were not human, called by our great Constitution 3/5 of a person. And I remember when the Dred Scott decision said that no black man has any rights that a white man has to respect. And then the Plessy versus Ferguson, which came out of Louisiana, said that separate but equal was the right way. And I hear Abraham Lincoln in his second inaugural address. He said, fervently do we hope, and earnestly do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war would surely pass away. But if God wills that it continues until the bondman's 250 years of unrequited toil is sunk, and every drop of blood drawn by the lash shall be another drawn by the sword, still must we say the judgment of the Lord is true and righteous altogether. They tried to stamp us out. They tried to take our dignity. But a strange thing happened. They made us slaves. But we sang a song, before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. They told us you are nobody. And even if we get to heaven, you'll be segregated. But I heard them say, I want you to know I've got shoes, you got shoes, and all of God's children got shoes. I think they tried to make us think we were stupid. But when the slaves were saying, steal away to Jesus, they were not talking about some religious experience. Swing low, sweet chariot meant that Harriet Tubman was coming through on the Underground Railroad. They tried to stamp us out. They tried to take our dignity. They raped our women, but they kept their virtue. They hung us on trees, but God turned that hanging into a crucifixion. They tried to stamp us out, but we walked out of slavery, built our churches, started universities, started schools, started new life, raised our children, held our head up high, went to church on Sunday and gave God the praise. We've gone from the outhouse to the White House. We've gone from horseback to Cadillac. And I promise you, you can't stop. If God be for us, who can be against us? Unintended consequences and many things the devil has done to you, he thought would rob your joy. He thought would steal your faith. He thought would make you turn back. But here you are, listening to the preaching experience in 2023, saying, the Lord has made a way for me. The Lord is the bridge over troubled water. I've been down, but not out. I've cried, but the Lord has taken my tears and turned tragedy into triumph. He's turned midnight into midday. He's turned slavery into salvation. He's turned repression into redemption. He's turned wickedness into a way of hope. And I'm glad he made a way where there was no way. And somebody watching me tonight can testify everything that happened to me, everything that went wrong in my life, my setbacks became my summit, my comebacks, my stumbling blocks, my stepping stone. He raised my bowed down head. He dried the tears from my eyes. He put clothes on my back. He put shoes on my feet. I shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. I've had to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but I feared no evil, for thou art with me. He prepared a table for me in the presence of my enemy. Surely, oh Lord, surely, goodness and mercy has followed me all the days of my life. I dwell in the secret place of the Most High, under the shadow of the Almighty. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? When the wicked came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. No weapon, good night now, y'all. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I used to have jet black hair. I had a birthday the other week, and I'm getting older by the day, so I can say it now. I was young, but now I'm old. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. When they him. When they marched him to Caiaphas, when they marched him to Herod, when they marched him to Pilate, when they beat him like an animal, when they put a cross on his shoulder, when they marched him up the Via Dolorosa, they thought they were getting rid of him. But I heard Ralph West say the biggest mistake they could make is put a nail in the hand of a carpenter. He took that nail and built a bridge from hell to heaven. He took that nail and built a road from death to life. He took that nail and built a throne to save mankind and to reign as Lord of heaven and earth. When they put a spear in his side and buried him in Joseph's new tomb, they made a big mistake. They never should have lifted him up. They never should have got him off the ground. When they got him off the ground, he said, and if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. And they never should have put him in the grave. But he said, except a corn of wheat fall in the ground and die, it abides alone. They buried him, stayed dead 3 days, stayed dead 3 nights, but early Sunday morning there was an unintentional consequence. He took the keys to death, hell, and the grave. He kicked the bottom out of the grave and turned a dead-end street into an expressway. He rose with all power over his foes. He arose the victor over the dark domain, and he rules forever with the saints to reign. Living, he loved me. Dying, he saved me. Buried, he carried my sin far away. Rising, he justified me, freed me forever, and one day he's coming back. Glorious day. Don't worry about what you're going through. Good night. Don't worry about what you're facing. Weeping may. I feel like running. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, harder yet may be the fight. Right may often yield to might. Wickedness a while may reign. Satan's cause may seem to gain, but there is a God who rules up above with a hand of power and a heart of love. And if I'm right, he'll fight my battle, and I shall be free someday. Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right? All right. All right. All right. The door is open. Didn't mean to hold you this long, but it's gonna be all right. Did you hear what I said? It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. Go on home. Go to bed. As Dr. Evans used to say, pull the cover up around your neck and go to sleep. Because all night, all day, angels watching over me. I gotta quit this, y'all. Oh, Lord. Ain't he all right? He's all right. Didn't mean to hold you this long. But I want you to know, everything the enemy has done to hurt you, God is going to make it work out for your good. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Story is told about a lady, a racist lady, who did not like a minority moving into her lily white community. So you know what she did? She would take, let me dress this up, fertilizer, manure, and throw it in the yard of her neighbor to register her distaste and disrespect for her presence. This went on for several months. The lady got sick, very, very sick. And so the neighbor to whom she was so rude came to visit her, bringing her these beautiful red roses, more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen. And she said, I heard you were sick, you're my neighbor, and I came to visit you. The sick lady said, where did you get those magnificently beautiful roses? The lady replied, you know, when you would put fertilizer in my yard, I put it in my flower bed, and it grew these gorgeous roses. The enemy has put a lot of stuff in your life. Take it and grow some beautiful flowers. Unintended consequences. There may be someone watching me tonight who wonders, what in the world is this business of living all about? I can't give you that answer, except in God there is hope, there's victory, there's power. He doesn't always take us out of it, but gives us the power to handle it. If you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, or if someone is watching this, you know there's an unbeliever who needs to watch it, or someone who needs a church home, have them repeat these life-changing words after me. I confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. I believe in my heart he arose from the dead. And now, by faith and according to your word, I receive the gift of salvation, the forgiveness of sins, and everlasting life. Now tell him, thank you, Lord, for saving me. Would you like to become a member of our church? Join virtually. We're going to roll out a plan pretty soon that anyone, anywhere in the world can be a virtual member of the Life Center Cathedral in the city of New Orleans. We're calling it Life Everywhere. So thank you for joining me tonight. And remember, all night, all day, angels watching over me, my Lord. All night, all day, angels watching over me. I said it's all night, all day, angels watching over me, my Lord. Said it's all night, all day, angels watching over me. And until we get together again, I want you, yes you, to enjoy life. The Lord be with you.